Well, what do you make of what's happened this weekend? Not this week, I suppose, since Thursday, since Elon came out and said free Tommy Robinson, pinned it to his Twitter feed. Elon looked what's been going on with Tommy, and he realised it was completely unfair. Now, I'm amazed at the pushback against Elon Musk. Not we expect it from the lefties, we expect it from the Labour Party, but GB News, big mistake. I think GB News have made a catastrophic mistake in taking on Elon Musk, because they've been really, really standing cheek by jowl with Nigel, giving Nigel a platform, giving Nigel's lackeys a platform, and allowing them to do a hatchet job against Tommy Robinson. Now, Elon has basically said, okay, I've looked at this guy. I know he's not a choir boy. I know he's, pleaded guilty to an offence, but the punishment is excessive. That's pretty much what Elon's saying. And then Elon has got hold of the whole grooming gang thing as well. And again, because this is going to be going on YouTube, I can't use the word that begins with R. How pathetic and childish is that? But that's just the way it is. So we'll talk about the grooming scandals. And Elon's got a hold of this, and he's watched, as far as I know, the first film that was made about that scandal in Telford, episode 1, and he's watched that on Twitter. He might have watched episode 2. Episode 2 is probably the best episode out of them all, actually, because it goes into a lot of the theological and cultural reasons why this is happening, which people very, very rarely talk about. So he's looked into this in quite some detail. As far as I know, he's watched the Silence film as well. So he's fully aware of the situation. This guy's one of the most, probably the most successful entrepreneur in history. He's talking about sending people to Mars, not as a country, but as a private individual. He started PayPal, which is basically now the World Bank, for goodness sake. So Elon is no mug and no sucker. And I think what happened today shows what happens when someone who's says the wrong thing, does the wrong thing, and do it out of wrong motives. If you come across someone that's very smart, very sharp, and very rich, they're not going to play games with you. You're going to be gone. And I think that's what's happened with Nigel. Now, I watched Ben Leo on GB News, man, talking about how Musk has got it wrong. What does Musk know? Musk's new to this game. He's given, first of all, I want you to think about this. He's given Trump 200 million. Like it's loose change, Leo. I wish I could give someone 200 million pounds to bankroll a political campaign. We'd turn the world upside down. But the fact of the matter is that Elon Musk has made his decision. And I would imagine the more people pressure him to go back on that decision, the less likely that is to happen. And what Elon's doing is he's prizing the lid open on the corruption, on the disgusting nature of a lot of the politicians that we've got in this country. He's shining a light on them, and like rats, they're all scurrying away into the corners of the room. So what's the overall significance of this? Because this is the important thing. Does it have any significance? Well, first of all, for Tommy, is it going to be a good thing or a bad thing that Musk is calling for his release and at the same time attacking the Labour Party? I think if anything happened to Tommy Robinson now, the eye of the American government would shine very, very brightly on the UK government. So I think that's the first thing, because what Ben Leo doesn't realise when he's spouting off about, he thinks Trump's going to get rid of Elon. No, he's not. Not in a million years. The reality is there are a lot of people like Elon Musk in the American administration, the American government. They look at Tommy, Mike Flynn, people like what's his name, Alex Jones. They look at Tommy and they admire Tommy, and there's a lot of support for Tommy in the United States of America. There's people fly across from America, for goodness sake, to go to the demos in London. So he's got a lot of support, and I think the reality is that the support from America is not going to wane as a result. This is actually going to grow, and that's a very interesting thing. We know Steve Bannon's a big fan of Tommy, so we know the Americans get Tommy and they admire Tommy for the way he fights the battles. So that's the first point. The support is not going to go down as a result of this. The support will go up. This is a win-win for Tommy. And what I've noticed in the sort of, I don't know how many years it is, 8 years, 9 years, I don't know, however long it is, 2017, 8 years. The 8 years that I've been doing this, everyone that takes Tommy Robinson on ends up completely destroying themselves in terms of their career, their profile. It always backfires on them, always. You know, you could look at that ex-SES guy that did it, the journalist that did it from the BBC, the Sky News guy. Loads of them have had a go, and he's always turned it around on them. Now Tommy's in prison, so he couldn't retaliate himself, but he's got plenty of people outside that would make Elon Musk well aware of what Tommy's done. He is not an angel, as we've always said. Excuse me. So that's the first point, that from Tommy's point of view, it's a win-win. But then when we look at what we need to achieve in the country, I've always said this: the main threats to this country are Islamism, which is fundamentalist Islam, in other words, a literal version of Islam that's fanatically followed by fundamentalists. Communism, exactly the same, fanatical socialist ideology that's basically taken over the institutions and pretty much taken over the country. Our country's been run by a Trotskyists. And globalism, and the Islamists and the communists are all globalists. So that's what we're up against. And of course there are some supposedly right-wing globalists that are just into the globalist scheme for filthy lucre's sake, because they know they can make money out of it. So how does this intervention by Elon, of course the laugh of it is you could say Elon's a globalist, but how does this intervention by Elon Musk affect that strategic battle that we're in? Well, I'll be honest with you, looking at Farage, looking at his comments, Farage is not going to do anything about radical Islam or Islamism, whatever tag you want to put on it. But we know what we're talking about. Farage isn't going to do anything about that. Is he going to stop immigration? I don't think so. His net zero migration was one in, one out. So you lose Tarquin, Phil and Richard, and you get Mohammed, Afzal and Zia. Okay, that's the trade that Reform are happy to make. As long as there's one in, one out, it doesn't matter. They're not that interested in culture. Farage has said all this. He's really not that bothered. He doesn't care about culture, and he's also said that he thinks that Islam's going to take over the country, so we better make peace with the radical Muslims because they're going to take over anyway. He said that in an interview. He started saying a bit about deportations, but that's only because he was being pushed by people on the right in politics. And of course, when he sees a headwind going one way, he's like any politician. He flips and goes the way that he thinks the wind's blowing. So Farage isn't really a conviction politician. He was about Brexit, and fair play to him. He did well at Brexit. He's a good communicator. But he is not, Elon Musk is right. He's not the man to lead reform, and he's not going to be the next Prime Minister. It's not going to happen because he has deliberately alienated the British working class. When you attack Tommy Robinson, you alienate the British working class. And you can't do that in this country and win power. What we need is someone that can bring the Conservative Party, the right wing of the Conservative Party that is, UKIP, the SDP, many of the other micro parties, and Reform together, and a whole lot of other people that aren't actually involved in politics at the minute. Bring them all together, put them in a big mixing bowl, bake a cake, and get the perfect right-wing super coalition. A coalition of the willing, a grand coalition, and operate that to change the country and save the country. And so this is what needs to happen. Once we get that coalition, we need to strategically deploy candidates in all those areas that are marginal seats. I mean, it's easy enough to do the maths on this. You can go and work them out by, all the stats and the information excuse me, is there and readily available. You get all that information and you just barnstorm it, and you make sure that you're not standing against each other. So you do make pacts, you do make coalitions. Obviously, you can't make excuse me, pacts and coalitions with ridiculous far-right lunatic Nazi parties that are white supremacists or the ethno-nationalists. You can't have a coalition with them. It just can't happen. But you can have coalitions with other smaller parties, and the Conservatives and Reform working together for the greater good under the document called the Pledge, because the pledge makes sure that you can't be far right or far left. You're just in that sweet spot, that centrist spot, and it talks about all the issues that we're worried about. So that is the ideology behind the coalition, and then each individual party can have their own manifestos that are obviously within the parameters of those ideas and that ideology. And then of course you also need a number of people who are thinkers, who are the ideologues behind this new political movement. And it hasn't started yet. We haven't started. Reform's a part of it. Reform is not it. So it needs to be a lot broader than just the Reform Party. It needs to include UKIP. It needs to include the right wing of the Conservative Party and everything in between. If we do that and we get it right, we've got a chance of winning. And that's why Elon's intervention is so important, because Farage is not interested in that. And if anyone's going to go on a very narrow party political way, it's not going to work. Pacts and alliances need to be built, and there needs to be unity. And we're always accused of dividing the vote. No, we're talking about pacts. We're talking about alliances, allegiances. Where are different parties going to do the best? What party's going to do the best in the north of England? Maybe UKIP. What party's going to do the best in Wales? Maybe UKIP. What party's going to do the best in the southeast or the southwest? It could be Reform. It could be the rump of the Conservative Party, the right wing Conservatives. You don't let anyone that's a lefty in the Conservative Party. You stand candidates against them and make sure they don't win. Simple as that. There's no point in having left wing people in this coalition. It's got to be genuine right wingers. So that's my idea about what we do. And I think Elon's opened the door to that, because the reality is we need to have the British working class. We need to have all the settled immigrant communities, the Sikhs, the Hindus, Afro-Caribbean folk, everybody that's settled and is proud to be British and is busting a gut to make the country great. We need to bring all those people together. That's why we're called Uniting the Kingdom. Muslims that aren't radicalised, Muslims that are moderates. I mean, I think of Shohab in Wales, great guy, and he's 100% on board. He 100% gets it. Momus is an ex-Muslim. A lot of my friends are ex-Muslims, so we need to include them in this cake that we're going to bake, because they have a lot of insights into what's happening in that community, into what the threats are and how we can mitigate those threats. So moderate Muslims and ex-Muslims, very, very important to bringing people together. So it's about real unity. It's about bringing the working class, the middle class and the upper class all together in one place to take our country back. And like we've said so many times, the important thing is that you have red, white and blue in your heart. That's the important thing. So unfortunately, because Farage has deliberately cut off a massive part of his constituency, Elon Musk has quite rightly looked at that and gone, no, this guy can't win. This guy is dividing. He's splitting things. And people probably say I'm divisive because I've said a lot about Farage, but I know what Farage is like, and he is divisive, and he is a snob, and he's not interested in the working class. He says he is, but he's not, because Tommy is the working class. Tommy represents the working class and the middle class, for that matter. So I think if Elon sticks to his guns and eventually Farage leaves stage right or stage left, he can go out with dignity. He can go out quietly. He doesn't have to go out kicking and screaming. But I think he's got to go. And that might be a shock to a lot of you watching these videos, but I've said it for a long time. He is not the man to lead this country. I think Ben Habib is. To be Ben Habib or Rupert Lowe, or a combination of both of them. So that's where I'm at. Yeah, so let's just see what happens next. But it's been a very interesting few days, and it's been fun to watch. It's been fun to hear from firsthand what's been going on from different people. But I think Nigel's really yesterday's man, and we need to be looking to different people to actually save this country from the catastrophe that it's looking at. See you all soon.